Former BYU and NFL star Todd Christensen has passed away from complications during a liver transplant surgery. The former ESPN color analyst had been dealing with liver problems. I'm Tony Collins alongside ESPN college football analyst Trevor Matich. Trevor, Christensen was a four-year starting running back at BYU. You both played for the same school. What did he mean to your alma mater?
He helped build BYU football to what it became, which is a national champion just a few years after he left in 1984. There was a run under Coach Lavelle Edwards there, starting in the 70s, where BYU went from being one of the weakest teams in college football to being the best team in college football as defined by the national championship. And it was built by guys like Todd Christensen who brought that program up in terms of its ability to win games. And that snowballed. That allowed more and better recruits to keep coming in. Depth continued to improve. The footprint of the BYU football program nationally improved. And that all happened because of the foundation that Todd Christensen helped build.
Now, Christensen was drafted by the Cowboys, but he was a legend with the Raiders. What was his impact in the league?
Well, he won 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders. He went to 5 Pro Bowls. And the thing about it is that he wasn't just a big lunkhead, meathead tight end. He played fullback at BYU, tight end in the NFL for the most part. But he was a guy who was incredibly intelligent. And so he was a matchup problem for defenses, not just because of what he can do physically, but because he would recognize what defenses were trying to do, and he would attack them intellectually, and that really annoyed defenses.
You just said he was very intellectual. He did have a career after the NFL as a broadcaster. What can we remember of him as a broadcaster?
Brilliance. I mean, he is so smart that he couldn't help from having his intellect seep into his broadcasting. And so he'd use vocabulary words every once in a while that made me go, whoa, whoa, what does that mean? You knew you were talking to a guy who not only knew what he was talking about in terms of football, but who was very well-rounded. And because of the way he spoke, you knew that he could speak not just about football, but about really anything from a social standpoint, from a political standpoint, religious standpoint, business. This was a well-rounded man, and because of that, I think he was a better broadcaster for it. You couldn't help but to think that you were talking to the smartest man in the room whenever you were talking to Todd Christensen.
Trevor, for all the success that he had on the field, how was he off the field?
He would tell you that he was most proud of his education, even more than his football career. And he would also tell you that no success compensates for failure in the home. That's a saying from one of the leaders of the LDS Church that is very famous in Utah. And for all the success that Todd Christensen had as a broadcaster and as a football player, his greatest successes were at home with his wife, Kathy, and with his 4 children. And you talk about the legacy of athletics, you talk about the legacy of broadcasting, all that is really good. But Todd's true legacy will be in what his children will carry on with and what his wife will remember about him, the fact that she was with a man who knew how to be a man and who knew how to be a husband, who loved her, and that was the greatest gift he could possibly give to their children. In addition to that, as a father, he developed kids that will go on into the world and with their children and theirs, carry on that legacy. See, it's one thing to be successful in a career, but if you're not successful equally at home, then in Todd's view, I think he would tell you that it's not nearly as valuable. And I think his greatest success came with what he succeeded at as a father, as a husband, in the home. And so football's great, home is better. And so as we talk about Todd Christensen going forward, let us always remember that the priority was always in the right place and the excellence continued from the home outwards, not the other way around.
Todd Christensen gone too soon. For Trevor Matich, I'm Tony Collins with your latest ESPN headline.